All right, welcome to the show. This is my special guest, Brooklyn Ali. He's a Australian Shepherd, 3 years old, and my other guest, Timothy Busbice, the founder of
Yeah.
PROME and the father of Biologic Intelligence. Sponsored today by LaCroix. No, I'm not just kidding. I'm not really. Um, what keeps me going? All right, buddy, come on, get down. You're gonna do something. Okay, lay down, bud. So yeah, so let's see here. I do want to get an update. I think, since the last time we spoke publicly, we've had a little something called ChatGPT and large language models take the world by storm. So I think it's probably worthwhile to talk about the difference between deep learning, LLMs, and biologic intelligence, which AI is beginning to exist on a continuum, throw machine learning in there as well, and regression lines all the way on the left end. So yeah, maybe we just start there with a quick overview from your perspective. You've been in this space for a long, long time. What do you think about that? Start there and then
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
okay, cool.
that works for me. So you want to start with ChatGPT?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think maybe one of the things is how why couldn't you put an LLM in one of your robots and have the same performance that Chrome has in one of your robots? What's different? What's the same? What's different? People aren't
Yeah,
experts, high level.
yeah, yeah. LLMs. Well, there are people working on a robotic version of that, but
Mhm.
um, it, it's it reminds me a lot of the IBM Watson. It's really semantic databases. We call them now vector databases, but it's just pretty much the same thing, but vector databases are a little bit more high performance. And so like I use ChatGPT regularly. Okay. And there's many forums out there for development that I also plug into. I've used Bard and Gemini and all the different ones. Uh, for programming, it's still pretty shy on expertise. It'll write a program for you, but whether it works or not is a real gamble.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
usually the type of programming I need it for, it doesn't work. Or yeah, it just sometimes it creates things that don't exist, things like that. So
So it's God? Is it God that's creating things that don't? No, I'm just kidding.
well, I mean, things like they'll put things in the program that oh,
Yeah,
you should import this library. Well, that library can't be found.
yeah. You made it up. Yeah.
Yeah, they made it up. Yeah, so it's gotten better. It's gotten better from a year ago, anyway. But it's still, I would say, a year ago it is a real 50-50 chance that anything it gave you would work. Now
Hmm.
it may be closer to 60% chance that it'll work,
Hmm.
but still very far away from being a programmer or
Hmm.
developer. And I know people are working on it, and there's a product that just came out, which I have not seen or used, called Devin. It's supposed to be a programmer.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that video.
Yeah. So, I, I, I think it's got a long ways to go. I mean, of course, you hear all the hype and garbage that's out there about OpenAI and the things they're supposed to be doing, and they talk about version 5 and how it's going to revolutionize everything. Well, of course you heard that from going from 3 to 4, etc. So, and then they talk about things like hallucinations. Well, hallucinations really just the application going amok because it doesn't know what to do or how to do it. The bottom line is biologic intelligence, what we're developing, has context to what is real. What it senses, it has context to understand.
Hmm.
Chat GPT and LLMs and the like have no context of understanding.
Until you give it to them
No, I
in
mean,
the text prompt.
well, you can tell it, draw me a picture of a cup, but it has no clue what a cup is.
Mhm.
It knows what it knows where it can grab libraries to say this is a cup, but it doesn't know. Never used a cup, never sensed a cup. All it knows is that it's been trained to say this is a cup.
Mhm.
And that's the huge difference between general intelligence and AI. And from the biggest perspective is that AI, even today, even with ChatGPT 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, if it doesn't have a context of what it's talking about, it never will progress to a point where it really fully understands and could be general.
Mhm.
I don't see it. I mean, I just really don't see it. I see the failures all the time. I listen to Gary Marcus a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary or not. I've met
Mhm.
Gary, and he's actually chimed in on some of my Twitter feeds. But um, he's very critical, and I have to agree with just about everything he ever says. It's just if it doesn't have context, it's never going to be able to generalize how to operate in a world in a general sense.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I
it,
mean, they use terms and phrases like context windows. So I think most people who probably are listening and have studied it will go, well, that's wrong. They have context windows, and the context windows are getting larger, and we use larger chips and larger data centers. And I think the difference of what you're saying is it's training data, right? Like we got to give you a
yeah,
1,000 cups, 10,000 cups, and we've labeled them as such using humans. That then it's cup, and so here's the pixel orientation from showing it 10,000 cups. But then
right,
what you're saying about biologic intelligence is there is no training data. You just
right.
turn it on and using its senses, it, I don't know if
You tell it,
understand is the right word, but
yeah, it does. Yeah,
it senses its environment, and then maybe years later you might say, well, that thing's a cup, and then it would map up cup to whatever. But either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're on Mars or in a well or in a mine and you've never seen a rock before, do you care, or a pipe, or do you just want to like get out of the way of the steam or falling rocks, or do you need 10,000 images and videos of falling rocks before you save your own life? Like, I think that's maybe where the difference is.
right.
Like,
And
can
but that example there, you could create a robot today that would realize that this object is coming towards it, and
mhm,
it may not understand what that object is, but it's smart. It would have enough intelligence to know I don't want that object hitting me, so I'll move myself out of the way. But again,
mhm,
it doesn't know if that's a piece of foam rubber coming at it or a 1 ton rock.
mhm,
And so it's going to move no matter what, but it has no context again as to what actually is coming towards it. Is that a
mhm,
piece of fabric, like a parachute or something that was ejected upon entry, or what exactly is that material coming at me? All it knows is something's coming at me, and I don't want to be around anything that's coming at me. So it'll
mhm,
jump out of the way or move out of the way. But we would know better. Humans would know better. We or animals would know better. Is that oh, this is just a plastic bag, you know, getting blown across the landscape, right, versus a 5 ton rock coming rolling towards us,
mhm.
ready to smash us into the ground.
Right. So then the software then that's in the robots, like, right, I mean, this is the critical thing. It's like people are using LLMs to power robotics, and obviously we've been using our proprietary biologic intelligence, artificial connect home software to do it. So, I mean, basically, without all the how the sausage is made, what type of, like, if grandma or 5-year-old kid was sitting there, what type of differences do you think they would experience watching both ones go side by side?
Like both ones of what? I lost you there.
Like one robot powered by LLMs and another robot powered by biologic intelligence.
Oh, yeah, because the one powered by biologic intelligence would adapt to its environment like we would, where LLMs it would have to pause and figure out what the environment was. In other words, we can cycle through our environments without any forethought. It's a no-brainer for us, so to speak, because we understand the environments that we move into, even ones we've never been into before. I always say, I could take a 3-year-old child that's never seen an office chair in its life, bring that child into my office, and the child would have no issue, no problem understanding that my office chair was a chair. Probably climb into it and do whatever. So whereas typical AI, and I include deep learning and LLMs and everything in that same context, it would have to be trained on, oh, this is an office chair versus this is a sofa chair, or this is a dining room table chair.
Yeah.
It would describe it as something, and there's plenty of classic examples out there where they've shown pictures of things to classic AI anyway, and it's totally identified what it was, only because it's never been trained, or what it's been trained on kind of resembles what it's seeing in the image, but it really doesn't. It's really not anything to do with the image.
Yeah, I guess it's like real world versus digital world.
Yeah.
And
Well,
one
one of the
is
biggest,
custom built for digital and one's custom made for the real world. And it's
and
just two
it's
different use cases.
yeah, and it's interesting because I've been approached a number of times about people talking about virtual worlds and training in virtual worlds, and I've given some deep thought and found, basically I go back and tell them, well, the issue you have is that your virtual human, or whatever your object is that you're moving through the virtual world, has very limited senses. 99.9% of it is visual. And even if you apply a lot of physics engines to it, it still will never experience that virtual world like we experience the real world. So it'll never understand contextually what's in the real world, because all it's got is some vision of being applied to some virtual reality.
Yeah, math. I mean, in essence, you would have to accurately create all of physics in the universe in mathematical models,
Well,
and then
also the
have,
millions of sensors we have.
yeah, right, for sure. So it seems to me like that's the essence of connectome, right? I mean, it is
Right.
the nervous system. It's the branching throughout an entire brain and body and all the quadrillions of sensory inputs, all the cortical processing and the muscle output that is feeding back on itself in real time to create learning, manipulation, automation, right? Autonomy,
Yeah. I
manipulation, the
mean,
whole thing.
we know not to run into an object because we know it hurts.
Yeah. And how different objects hurt differently in the physics.
Yeah.
We have a feel of them. And then
Right.
I feel also like some of the other thing is, I mean, I just read an article on quanta yesterday where it's like, oh, dark energy is decreasing or dark matter is decreasing. And they thought it was a constant in the physics equation, which accounts for something like 95% of our explainable universe. We just say, oh, well, here's what's left over to make the equation balance. We're going to call it dark matter and dark energy. And now they're finding that it's not a constant. And so it's
Right.
like, even if we
Interesting.
could, even if we could accurately capture everything in the universe in an equation, program that and put it into a computer, even with the help of advanced AI, we'd still be missing something that hundreds of millions or even billions of years of evolution is missing. So the closest we can get is actually take the thing that's already there from nature and then put that into robotics. It's as close as we're going to get. But then here's my thing, right? Like, They were able to do a full human connectome. What is it, like 100 trillion neural connections?
Yeah.
How would we? The technology may not exist. How would we recreate like a humanoid, like in terms of us? I mean, would you physically have to like put in the full nervous system and connection and like actually tie up every single sensory neuron to that piece in the connectome inside a robotic system, what were a hardware?
Well, you got to understand your peripheral nervous system is a connectome in and of itself. So,
What do you mean
um,
peripheral nervous system?
well, like your hands and your skin and
Mhm.
your muscles and because that's feedback. Your muscles are feedback into your brain as far as it's a sensory input. In fact, it's interesting because one of the updates I wanted to talk about today is my exploration of Drosophila.
Mhm.
And one of the things I recently, discovered, or I mean, it's been out there forever, but I just discovered it, is that it has like a spinal cord. It has what's called the ventral nerve cord. And in that
And this is a what animal is this? The colloquial term?
Drosophila, the little no, the little fruit
Fruit
fly.
fly? Okay.
So those neurons within the ventral uh, nerve core talk or connect to like leg muscles, for instance. It's
Mhm.
not a direct connection from the not necessarily a direct connection from the central nervous system, but central nervous system to the nerve core and the nerve core to the muscles in the leg. And the leg also has sensory input. So it feeds that information back through the cord to the central nervous system. So just like us, I mean, uh, we have neurons that come and allow us to move and do things and whatever in our peripheral, but we also had feedback, whether it's an object cold, hot, the pressure that we're pushing or whatever back into our nervous system. They give us that feedback. So even though the little Drosophila has that to a very primitive degree.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. So fruit fly would map to drones.
Yeah, and that's I've just purchased a drone. I'm waiting for it to come. Should be in a couple of weeks. And what I'm going to be doing is applying the Drosophila nervous system to the drone.
Mhm.
See what
And then
happens.
yeah, fly away with your lunch.
Yeah.
Come back here. Give back here. Yeah, take over Amazon's delivery for it.
Yeah.
Which actually not a bad idea. But the question, so I saw obviously like we've been talking and one of your videos was like the treating forest fires,
Yeah.
which is interesting from an ESG perspective and carbon capture perspective, but also just like oxygen and land and the whole ecosystem. But how would that work? Like, how would that be better than, I don't know, the existing technology of drone?
Well, one of the things we have right now, and like forest fires or large areas that we can survey in the mountains, even locally here in the greater Los Angeles area, they have towers that people man during the fire season. And what
Mhm.
they do every day is just sit out there and look for smoke.
It's like real. You laugh, but I laugh, but it's
Yeah,
real.
yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I told you I'm working with a gentleman from Portugal, a scientist, and it just happened that his father is like part of there will be like our equivalent to the United States Forestry Department, and they have the
Yeah.
same thing. They have and Portugal and Spain suffer greatly from wildfires, just like we here in California. So
Hmm.
they also have towers, and they just sit out there and look for smoke. So even for one thing, you could obviously replace that person with a smoke detector of some sort.
Hmm.
It's constantly scan the horizon and see if anything pops up. Then you could send some fleet of drones to that area to say, okay, if there's something there, if there's a fire going on, put it out,
Hmm.
so that it'd be what the Drosophila gives us is it gives us fully autonomous uh, navigation,
Mm,
and gives us the ability to use sensors that could give us the ability to target, say, a flame or
hmm
smoke, and just spray it with
hmm
water or whatever chemicals we want to, Fostech or whatever we want to use.
hmm
So if you
And
had,
then,
say like a fleet of drones, you could
hmm
immediately put out a fire, instead of waiting for the fire to get to 500 acres of
mm,
burn, and then have to bring in the heavy equipment like planes and helicopters and
yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of like a drones and waiting, and then
Yeah,
there's a couple different sensory neurons, and then they just go tackle the issue immediately. And then there's
right,
some control software on the outside about like return and some safety mechanisms, and then
right,
you just need to fill up that tank of water unless there's
right.
something nearby where they can get. Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah,
the other
they could
thing is
either,
you could actually detect it to use natural water sources that are
yeah,
as close as possible to the spot to do like optimization challenges. But essentially, I mean, our hypothesis is that some of that is inherently programmed into the fruit fly, which is
yes,
part of the reason is because that's a survival mechanism. So they'd be inherently attracted without training data, without tons of programming. So ultimately, the value of this whole thing is just speed of development and um, yeah, it's like speed of the development because you don't have to do all the edge cases, you don't have to do all the training. You just have to sort of
tell them where to go.
and not even really, right? Because I mean, if you had a smoke sensor or
Yeah,
monitors set
yeah,
up
right. You
and
could, yeah,
heat infrared, I mean, think about
yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator.
yeah,
Predators, I mean, even predators have
yeah,
infrared.
yeah.
Just give the yeah. So that's interesting. They
Make
could
a
detect
Terminator
the
to
smoke.
terminate fire. Yeah.
Yeah, and just have lots of safety protocols. Yeah, we don't want to go
Well,
down the
that's the
Terminator
thing
route.
too. Using Drosophila as an example, whether that fire is in a forest, in the desert, in some grassland, it doesn't matter. The
Or
navigation's
homes.
autonomous. Yeah, or
Yeah, that's
homes.
interesting in neighborhoods. You don't think about it, but there, I mean, here's a perfect example. You know Jeff, right? My buddy I
Yeah,
grew up with.
yeah.
So I was up at his place the last couple Thanksgivings, and in his development, there's one house that burned down, and it's been a big HOA nightmare for a long time. We won't get into about like trying to
Yeah,
rebuild it, but
I can
I mean, it
imagine.
happens. It
Yeah,
happens. I mean, you're right there in suburban America, and poof. And those fires can, I mean, our houses in suburban America are pretty close together.
close
So a
together.
little bit of wind. I mean, as a neighborhood watch goes, I mean, I'll tell you, an HOA I lived in for a couple years, and they weren't even expensive HOA fees, but I think they spent like 5 million bucks a year out of a $6 million budget. You know what they spent the 5 million on? Landscaping, flowers. And it's like, okay, that's great, but given a fire, I mean, there was a fire station in the community, so that's sort of helpful. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you could see the use case there on almost insurance. It's like just an
Yeah.
insurance policy. It costs
Oh,
you, I don't know what times the number of people in the community, $5 a person. It's like, look, it could save your family in the middle of the night when you're sleeping.
yeah,
Like, what's
exactly.
$5 a month, you know?
Yeah. Well,
It's
and I
interesting.
don't know if you're aware, in California, it's getting fire insurance is almost impossible now. I live in a HOA, and our HOA has just been, we've had to have special assessments because
Mhm.
they just can't get, the fire insurance is so outrageous. Mine almost doubled this year.
What's the level, like dollars per month in
Well, I paid
California
like
there
$900. I paid $600, I think, the year before. I paid $900 last year, and this year I just got the bill. It's like $1,500.
for the whole year?
Yeah, but
Jeez. So it doubled in 2 years.
yeah, yeah,
So basically, if we could come in and say, hey, that fire insurance thing you have, which doesn't stop the fire from destroying your life,
Right.
like you could pay us 400 instead of 1600, and we'll make sure your stuff's safe. Hmm. There's a lot of people in California
Yeah, no, and yeah, I hear the
with a
nightmares
lot of
all the
stuff.
time. It's getting worse
Yeah.
and worse, you know. There's a lot of companies won't renew like fire insurance now. State Farm is probably
Hmm.
the worst. They're not renewing anybody's. There's I think they said they're gonna not renew like 700,000 or 70,000, 72,000 homes. They're not gonna renew this year. Come on, get out of here.
This is interesting. I think that's State Farm calling about their innovation department, saying you're about to disrupt their business model and they need to talk to you. Because I mean, think about that, right? I mean, flood insurance is the other big one that nobody's
Right,
giving out anymore. And fire
right.
insurance, flood, I don't, we'd have to talk about that. But the fire insurance route is interesting. It's like you're going to pay all this money times how many million? There's probably what, 30 million people in California, maybe more. I don't even know
Yeah,
what
it's
the
like
stat
almost
is.
40, almost it's like 38 million, I think now.
And how many homes? And it's like insurance comes later and then they won't always pay your claim. It's like route, like cancel your insurance, all of California for fire, send your money to PROME,
Yeah,
and we will protect your home, your family, your belongings, and maybe there's some insurance involved as well because that's a better underwriting scenario. It's not just
yeah,
I'm waiting for something to happen and then I may or may not pay out a claim. It's like no, I actually have a mitigation. Huh. This is
yeah.
interesting. Like
And
like the
power
insurance
company.
companies would not like us, but
Well, the power companies would though, because the power
yeah.
companies are the ones causing the wildfires by their lines getting snapped, and
Wait, say more
they're
about
putting
that.
out they're putting out millions of dollars in claims right now because of their power lines. Um, the power lines, the trees fall on the power lines during heavy winds,
Hmm.
and they spark fires. The Paradise Fire was caused by uh, a line going down,
Hmm.
and it pretty much wiped out that whole community.
Yeah, above ground power
So
lines rather than underground.
right,
Yeah.
right, and there's still plenty of them around. Our city, where I
Yeah.
live, they've got some programs putting them all underground. They did a major one a few years ago that ends right down the bottom of the hill from where I live. But
Hmm.
and then it goes above ground
Yeah.
because I'm right on the Ventura Los
Right.
Angeles County line, it goes over Los Angeles County above ground.
Jeez.
Let those guys
Uh,
burn, I guess.
yeah, that's oh man. I used to live in LA. I don't want to see that
Yeah.
happen. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, talk to Elon. He's got some tunnels going in. Maybe he can throw the city a solid, you know? Like,
But they're even
yeah.
they're like I remember we're walking because we go out and exercise all the time. Walking, somebody was marking the trees, and we stopped and asked them. They said they were marking some trees because they were near power lines to be
Hmm.
taken out because they were concerned that these particular trees might snap and
Hmm.
cause a major fire.
Yeah. Hmm. I mean, this might be interesting. Keep me updated on how this thing goes. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously, they've got a ton of connections in insurance, and they've got buckets of cash, and they're more worried about the payout risk profile and the big one. So if we can not be a threat, but a solution to them as well, and also help people along the way, I think this is actually a really good use case that can
yeah,
help
yeah,
people today, help businesses today. Um,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
my ultimate
interesting.
plan with the quadcopter and the Drosophila nervous system is to actually
Mm,
connect a little water tank to the bottom of the drone with a little pump and
mm,
have it go out and actually extinguish a fire.
yeah.
Start a little fire.
That's
I'll go up to my property up north and my 40 acres and create a little fire, have
yeah.
it go out there and see if it'll put it out.
Yeah, Tim, make sure it's surrounded by rocks and an open
Well,
clearing.
it's all
You
green. It's
don't.
all green right now. It's beautiful
Yeah.
right now. It's all. beautiful green. But yeah, in about 2 more months from now, it'll all be brown.
Well, only you can prevent forest fires, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Um, hmm, interesting. I mean, that's the big problem is the weight of the water
yeah,
and available source is getting, hmm. But there's other fire mitigation. I think there's like, I am not an expert, but there's like dust particles or something that can help snuff out fire that isn't as heavy as water and has a bigger spread and more of a dampening effect. I'd have to do some research on it, but
yeah. I would
wonder
see.
if
Okay,
that's
so the smallest helicopter that carries water for fire dousing holds about 500 gallons. I
mhm,
think I know we could easily get up to 50 gallons with current tech
mm,
with current human drivable quadcopters.
uh-huh,
But I think if you were to take the same kind of design, I think you could probably get 100 gallons per drone. So I always envision this kind of fleet of drones, right? Not just a
yeah,
drone, but
right.
you know, and maybe in a shift kind of situation where you have say 5 drones attacking the fire, 5 drones getting water,
Mm,
and five
mm-hmm,
drones coming back. So you kind of rotate
mm-hmm,
the firefighting. But
yeah,
the ultimate goal with this concept to me is to put the fire out before it spreads. I think
yeah.
once it spreads to a major fire, I mean, then you got to have more conventional firefighting.
I'm I'm Googling fire dampening chemicals right now. I have a
Well, there's
friend.
Fostech. Yeah, there's Fostech, and I think if I remember right, Fostech may be even heavier than water. It may not be. I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure, but it's not. It's still heavy. It's not.
Well, I
And
wonder
Fostech
because
doesn't really. It's more of a prevents the fire from spreading more than putting out the fire, from what I understand. So what they do is they spread it around the peripheral. You never see them dump Fostech directly on the fire. It's usually around the peripheral of the fire.
yeah.
That red. You've ever seen them on the mountains here in California? The red, line that's going around where a fire was. That's where they dumped a whole bunch of Fostech,
Hmm.
and it's supposed to prevent the fire from moving any further. It's sort of like putting a line in the sand to say, okay, you fire, you can't go past here, and it works. I mean, that's why they use it. But they
Right.
but they still use water to dump directly on the fire.
Hmm. I wonder, I have some friends at BASF and some chemical manufacturers. It,
Uh-huh.
if this thing goes down the path, I mean, they're geniuses, chemical engineers. I feel
Oh,
like
sure, yeah.
a requirement of needs to be lighter than water and can spread further and dampen fire faster. Like, I'm sure they can come up
Smother.
with,
Yeah,
yeah,
smother the fire.
right.
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah,
other thing is you want to smother the fire without damaging the environment,
the
right?
environment,
So,
exactly.
yeah, that's why they use Fostech, because it has like a fertilizer or something built into it, so that once the fire's gone and the next season comes, it'll continue to grow vegetation,
Hmm.
which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing. Because it's like we had a record number or amount of rain this year in California, which is wonderful. Everything's green right now, but the more water we get, and of course we're not in a drought, which is wonderful, and
Hmm.
we're not being rationed water right now. But um, at the same time, the more water, the more vegetation, and the more vegetation, the more fire fuel. So it's a kind of a vicious circle, when it comes to all this stuff. But as far as like water sources, we had a fire here a couple years ago. I mean, probably I don't know, 50 yards from 100 yards from my house.
Hmm.
And we were out there and we're watching the helicopters come. And I understand they went to the local golf course and sucked up the water at the lake there. But even around here,
It's a free golf ball.
what they did is they figured out in certain areas where, like after the Woolsey fire, which kind of wiped out all of Malibu, and that came right down to where I live as well. They they created these tanks, these kind of portable tanks that they can put out there in the wilderness and fill with water, so the helicopters can come pull the water and then go back to the fire. So there's all kinds of things you can do with that. The other side of all this is what kind of got me started on this was when we had the Woolsey fire. It came down a mountainside right outside of our community here. It's only maybe probably 2/10 of a mile from my house, or 1/10 of a mile from my house, and it burnt down the side of a mountain. And there's another side that went up because kind of in a valley. So it burned down to half one of the valley, which was a fire road there. So it stopped there, and the firefighters were able to contain the fire at that point. And of course, they have to move on because they can't stick around. They got, this fire was huge, and they had to go fight it wherever they had to fight it. So this was like on a Friday morning, the fire department stopped the fire about 11 o'clock in the morning, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they took off. I think they left one truck here for a little while, but by mid-afternoon, they're all gone. A message went out on next door neighbor telling us that there's a guy who was trying to put a fire out in a tree. And the wife was asking people, anybody around, can you come help? Well, I went to grab my shovel and go help, and I saw another neighbor coming back, and he says, "Oh, it's already taken care of. We took care of it." But then we realized the whole side of the mountain was all still burning, embers, and it was windy. That's what causes our fires here, the winds, and it hadn't lit up the other side of the canyon, but we knew unattended it probably would. So I spent Friday night running up and down this mountain, putting out embers. And it was great when it got dark because you could see it pretty easily. You could see the embers glowing, so you knew where to run to, and you throw water or dirt on it. But even then, on Saturday, we had a couple little hot spots flare up that we put out right away. Even on Sunday, there was a tree, the whole inside of it lit up.
What?
And it was all around brush. Yeah, all the brush was around it, ready to be ignited, but just the center of the tree. And we, lucky enough, one of the neighbors was out walking their dog or something and saw it, and told everybody, "Hey, we got to put this fire out." So we all ran over there and put that out. But it was so bizarre that just the middle of the tree was on fire, and all the brush around it was fine. So those little embers, they take off in the wind. Wherever they land, they can cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm. So even there's a whole drone or robotic use case to do what we call fire mop-ups, because after the true professionals leave, there's still all these embers around and all this other stuff that if somebody doesn't take care of, it's going to just burn something more. And so they'll come back, but after everything else is burnt down.
Oh, well, I think it's time for a poll. Check this out. Can you see on your screen?
Sure can. Yeah, all those things. You can say like mine exploration. It's like deep sea mine exploration, or deep sea mining is another good one.
So I don't know if this picks up, because I think only you can vote. So it's a sample size of 1. But if the recording doesn't pick this up, I said best use case of biologic intelligence in parentheses, PROME. And the options are firefighting and fire mop-ups. Option 2, self-driving. Option 3, mine exploration. Option 4, other dangerous human need. And we have 1 vote that's come in so far.
That was me.
Call. And Tim, our chief scientist here and technology officer, has chosen firefighting and fire mop-ups because it's a clear and present danger. And this is okay. I'm going to end the poll because I can't vote, I guess. So I guess I don't count. Need to register next time. So let's share results. Okay, there you go. You can see your own result.
100%.
Yeah, there you go.
I love
100%. You know,
it.
you're predicting the future one day at a time. No, but that's super interesting because the whole like, I mean, you can't stand out there 24/7, 365. And now it
Oh,
makes sense why you've got,
I spent hours. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, talk about a waste of time and money but the risk is so high if you don't that it's
Yeah.
like you have to. So your life, what, like your life stops? And what if
Yeah.
it's during
Yeah.
a work day, during the week, in a
And I'm saying
neighborhood?
this,
Like,
this happened Friday morning, came down to our neighborhood, right? It
mm,
lasted through Sunday. We were putting out fires on
geez,
Sunday.
there goes your weekend,
Yeah, I
one
mean
way or the
everybody,
other.
yeah, everybody was alert. You know, everybody was watching and alert, and there was probably about 3 or 4 of us neighbors that were really tentative to it all. But there
Hmm.
was other neighbors that would, come in and just walk around the mountain or whatever to sort of try to. I mean, I'm talking about a steep mountain too. You carry 5 gallons of water up and down
Hmm.
these
Yeah,
mountains.
you
It was a
became a
workout
kung
and a
fu
half.
master. Yeah, yeah. The 36th chamber is not too far ahead of you.
But we
So,
had shovels too. But I mean, shovels I don't think do a good a job as just dousing it with water. The water would get rid of the
yeah,
problem real fast.
it's slower too. Interesting. Okay. All right.
So I
Well,
mean,
we're
that's what we're doing right now with Drosophila.
mhm,
I've got a little project plan figured out. I got to build it. I got a lot of different testing to do, a lot of different things that I need to apply. And like any project, you want to test one thing at a time. I'm not going to build the whole thing and say, okay, does it work? You got to
mhm,
test the Drosophila nervous system before I start applying things like water tanks and pumps and things like that to it.
mhm.
But
Interesting.
yes, but that's that's um, that's my goal probably over the next month or two to get a proof of concept for the Drosophila nervous system.
Yeah. Interesting. I like it. I think it's smart. It's a clear use case. Um, yeah, I wonder who else is out there doing the same thing. Seems crazy that there aren't like 50 companies trying to tackle that and save people's homes and big
Yeah,
market.
I haven't seen anything out there. Um,
Hmm.
I know in that Twitter exchange that we kind of had, there's several people kind of chimed in. Thought it was a great idea. Obviously, like I said, even Gary Marcus said there was some guy he knew at some university or something that was thinking along the same lines, but I've never
Yeah.
seen anything. I mean, I've seen firefighting drones. There's some cool things out there. There's one set of drones, but there's a difference between wildfires and structural fires, right? So the ones I've seen so far were drones, which were pretty awesome. The drones could pick up the hose and fly up to a building. So if it was a
Hmm.
multi-story building and the fire
Hmm.
was, 5 stories up, the drone basically would pick up the hose and pull the hose up there and
Hmm.
direct the water onto the fire. But I think it was all, manually
Remote
done. But
control.
but
Yeah.
it was cool that the cool concept, in my opinion, because for them to get the ladder extension and try to do it themselves. And of course, the ladder can only go so far, or the drone can go much further. So
Right.
they could, tackle a 10-story building or whatever to pull the hose
Hmm.
up and get to the place where the fire is happening.
Yeah.
Of course, most cities and stuff now require sprinklers, but inside the buildings.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of buildings out there that have not been fitted with sprinklers, especially a lot of older ones.
Yeah.
So,
I think the
so
home, I mean, the consumer market in the home is way bigger. And I mean, most homes don't have like fire retardant on the outside and like fields around homes. Like it just doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, what one of the big initiatives here to quote save on insurance, which is really a joke at this point, is called fire hardening. They, if you could harden your house against fires, the insurance company is supposed to give you a break, but when they're
Oh,
canceling
what?
your insurance altogether, who gives a
Yeah.
shit?
I mean, what do you do? Wrap it in like a cocoon? I don't know how you harden your house against fire. Keep it constantly wet. Like,
Well, actually, I ran into a company here local. And I thought about this concept a long time ago: is put these like heavy duty sprinklers around the outside of your house, like in your yard, kind of thing, that would pop up and just spray water everywhere around your house. And there's actually a company here locally that does that does that. And they had some video on there where it shows like these powerful sprinkler heads popping up and just like sprinkling the house and yard and everything around it. Here in
mhm.
the mountains of the Malibu mountains here, where that's where the Woolsey fire was, and I'm sure those folk can't even think about insurance. They probably have to use the state program.
Yeah. Hmm.
But
Makes sense.
but yeah, yeah. But that I mean, so there are people thinking along the terms of how to keep your house safe from a fire, but it's not inexpensive. You know,
Hmm.
helps if you have a pool because you can use that as a water source. And of course, you have to have the pumps and everything in place and around your yard or wherever you're going to, your peripheral of your house to make it safe.
Hmm.
But with the fire we had, it was only like 50 or 100 yards away. I mean, I have neighbors on the end that they were actually out of town when it broke out. And myself and my niece's boyfriend, who happened to be here at the time, ran over there and started dousing their house down with water because you could see embers coming. You
Jesus.
know, and actually, I mean, we just kind of got started. And the fire department came along, go, don't worry about it, guys. We're going to do this. We got it covered. So
Wow.
we let the fire department do their
Good.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're going to let our neighbor's house burn down. you know, uh,
Yeah, and they would get overwhelmed quickly. I mean, there's not
yeah.
an infinite number of firefighters. Interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we got about 10 minutes. What else should we cover? What else is new and cooking in your
Well,
world?
the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I think it's becoming more of a subject matter these days, is swap, size, weight, and power.
Hmm.
The one
Yeah,
thing
true.
that so the central complex of the Drosophila is equivalent to our hippocampus. It's where we have. So when we navigate what's called place cells, grid cells, border cells, and head direction cells. And it's all part of this hippocampal thalamus part of our brain that navigates all these pieces of neurons fire off and allow us to navigate freely through our environment. Drosophila has a very similar, they call it the central complex. Uh, More advanced insects have the same kind of pre-hippocampal body in their nervous system, and it for navigation purposes, of course. So I was able to take the central complex where I think it was like 60 some, I forgot how many neurons it was, a lot of neurons. One of the largest complex parts of the Drosophila brain. And actually, I got a brand new Raspberry Pi, um, or Raspberry Pi 5, and I was able to run the central complex on it. So
That's ridiculous compared to LLMs.
yeah,
Like we have to build massive supercompute using the most advanced cutting edge NVIDIA chips in the data center. And you're like, nah, I just got an off the shelf Raspberry Pi. That's fine.
yeah,
What?
and
Okay.
obviously to explore. I mean, to have an autonomous robot go out and explore the world, you can't like I think I might have shown you or sent you the picture I developed from
Mm.
Dolly, for ChatGPT,
Yeah, yeah.
showing
It was really good.
A Mars rover pulling, all these semi trailers behind it because, I
Of
mean, that's
data
what it
center
would
and
take.
compute. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, and recently OpenAI and IBM, or not IBM, Microsoft, I think it was, announced they're building this $100 billion supercomputer for AI. So here they're developing this
Yikes.
AI that can't even tell an office chair from from a dining room chair that it's going to be this mega data center. And even from an environmental point of view, a lot of people have noted that AI is just sucking up energy and causing tremendous amount of pollution and issues.
Yeah.
It's killing the
Take
environment.
that, take that 100 billion and just take 1 billion.
Yeah,
Shit, take 100 million. You know what? Take a million. Just take
yeah,
a million,
yeah,
which is
exactly.
what, 1/10,000th or whatever, and allow us to prove you. Well, we kind of already have. Whatever.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
change you can't change the world. Everyone's really hype on LLMs, and there's
I know.
there's
They're
they're
dumping all the
just
money
in
they
the
can
path.
into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it
A lot of
really
money.
surprised me a couple days ago. Lumena sent out uh, uh, I don't know, press release or something. I don't know
Oh
what
yeah,
it
I
would be
forgot about
called.
Numenta.
They sent out a thing saying if your AI can't run on a CPU, then give it up.
Yeah,
And it really surprised me, and I was so happy to see it because it's like
yeah.
you're absolutely right, man. If you
Hmm.
can't run on low power machines, if
Hmm.
you need 10 zillion GPUs for your AI to tell me how to write a program that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think really, I mean, look, it's such an amazing breakthrough. Attention is all you need, right? The 2017 paper. It's such an amazing breakthrough in the experience of changing one kind of pixel into a different kind of pixel and having it like actually make sense in words and visuals is really compelling.
yeah.
Um,
No, it's good.
but
I mean, but
I feel like what actually happened is you just took every if then do while loop statement possible across the entire internet that's ever existed, and then you put it behind a curtain in the land of Oz and said, "Don't look behind the curtain."
right,
And you have like, and that's really the issue is you just have this giant piece of mega machinery behind you in order to change a sentence into a picture. And
right,
it's like, is that
and
really helping
that
people, or is like
that
fighting fires helping people? You know what I mean?
yeah, that picture I created with like the rover with a bunch of semi trailers behind it. That was that was one out of maybe 6 or 7 pictures
Hmm.
because and now the big thing is prompt engineering because
Hmm.
if you don't tell the LLM exactly so it understands what you're asking for. Not that you don't understand, that it understand. It gives you results that are not desirable. Until I can tell you,
Hmm.
just trying to create a simple picture, like, you know, do a picture of a Mars rover with semi trailers behind it.
Hmm.
You wouldn't believe the crap that it generated.
Well, I did it. So in Q4 2023, I spent 3 months designing a men's fashion line using ChatGPT.
Uh-huh.
And I probably entered 10,000 prompts during that time to try to fine tune the
Yeah,
variables. And what
yeah,
it existed was a iteration friend. But I could never get you can never get past a certain threshold, which is
right,
hold this variable constant, change this variable, or
right,
like it wouldn't get the spelling right when you wanted to add a word to the text. And so what it really allowed you to do was just quickly visualize a concept and get you
right.
from 0 to 1. It gets you from 0 to 1 much faster from the blank piece of paper problem. But then from 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, the human has to take over. The biologic intelligence has to take over.
Exactly.
And
And again,
so
that's the same with programming. You know,
yeah.
ask it to write you a program. Ask you to ask it to give you a simple. I mean, if you ask for very simple scripts like Python programming or C# or
Hmm.
whatever programming that you want, it can usually generate real simple things.
Yeah.
Like if you say, give me a Python program to add two numbers together, it can do that for you without issue. But I mean, when you're really down deep in the weeds as far as like business programming and robotics programming, things like that, I mean,
Hmm.
it just
Yeah.
it just doesn't have
It
that.
gets raw. You know
Yeah.
what I think this whole thing is and how it ends up? I think what we're talking about is a hammer, a screwdriver, and a wrench, more or less. Do they compete with each other? I mean, I guess in some ways, yes. They're all different tools for different specific purposes in the context of
Yeah.
building things in the real world, but each thing is good for something unique. And
Right.
I think deep learning is good for something unique. Large language
Yeah.
models are good for something unique. Biologic intelligence is good for something unique as well. Um, I don't know. I don't know where this is all going to end up. Like if they end up converging, I mean, because humans are flawed too, right? Biologic intelligence. In some ways, we aren't perfect, but there's perfection in the imperfection. I don't know. Who knows where it all
Yeah.
ends
I
up,
mean,
but I think
there
real
are
world
possible.
physical
Yeah.
stuff, I think is
Yeah.
biologic. That's
Yeah.
it's always been my hypothesis. Like you get animal connectones, animal intelligence that have built in the physical universe, it will work for applications in the physical universe. If you've created large language models in a digital universe to transform text into images and videos from one pixel to a different pixel, then it'll work way better in digital space, which is one of the things you were saying. It's like people want me to put biologic intelligence into a digital space. And it's like, well, where's all your different sensory inputs? What's your motor
Right.
output? It's like you're trying to almost shoehorn. And I
Right.
feel like in the same way, maybe LLMs and deep learning are trying to shoehorn that into like humanoid robotics or
Yeah.
robotics in the real world. And so maybe that is really where the paradigm and the disciplines are just different in different use cases. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't tell you more. I agree. The thing is with the hype that's going around, I mean, AGI is the subject matter, right? Artificial
Right.
general intelligence, and somehow they think these LLMs or OpenAI is going to get us to AGI. All they have to do is apply more computing power, but
We're going
the
to run out.
scalability,
Yeah.
the scalability is not there, and
Hmm.
it's really silly. And the fact that no one's looking at this concept of swap that we've known about for how many years now. Um,
Yeah.
and
In
NASA obviously is very
aerospace.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 for
because
sure.
you're not gonna send 500 semi-trailers of computing power to Mars for a little rover to go around. In fact, there was even there's been serious thought as putting humans in orbit around Mars, like in a space
Hmm.
station, so that
Hmm.
they can run the rovers. And because right now, as we know, it takes 6 minutes to, you know,
Hmm.
back and forth between Mars and Earth, and it's like take a picture, send me the picture, which a picture is going to take more than 6 minutes. It's going to take a long
Hmm.
time. Okay,
Yeah.
looks safe. Go 20 more centimeters, and then take another picture and
Hmm.
send it to me. It's the rovers up there have only gone a few kilometers at best because
Hmm.
it's just excruciating, not to keep them from getting in harm's way, but it's all
Hmm.
human driven. So they
Yeah.
even
It's
talked about putting humans in a space station in orbit so they could have real time interaction with the rovers. But
yeah.
I think with our technology, you could put a rover out there and it would not it would be fine. It would not.
Hmm.
Um,
It wouldn't kill itself. Let's put it
yeah, it
that way.
wouldn't kill itself. It wouldn't get hurt. And if it did get hurt, we'd be able to somehow recuperate from that hurt. Yeah, right
Mhm.
now, if a wheel or something goes bad on a rover, it's like, oh, well, guess what, man? We're screwed.
Yeah, it can't adapt. Yeah, it can't adapt. And I mean, that's interesting. I mean, there is no training data available for Mars
Right,
or
exactly.
Venus. I mean, it doesn't exist. We have like three pictures. Like,
Yeah,
what are
we've
you going to
always,
train?
right. It's
There's
like,
nothing to train.
yeah, like we've always said, you can't take a self-driving car here in on the world on the Earth and put it to Mars and say, okay, now start driving around Mars.
Yeah, it's looking for
It
the
would
highway
definitely,
lines.
yeah.
It's like, where's
Where's
the
the stop
Seven
sign?
Eleven? Yeah, where's my where's where's my Tesla plug-in to recharge the rover? Yeah, well, size, weight, and power. I mean, that's why they say it starts with a toy. It's like actually not a toy. Like an RC car is actually, that is the test, the true test. Can you get an off-the-shelf robot with the world's most advanced artificial general intelligence software and run it on off-the-shelf parts? It's like a data center. It's commodity parts,
Right,
and that's what makes it happen. I mean, if every data center in the world and the internet was powered by custom, each one was custom, each chip was custom, we would never have the internet. It just like wouldn't work. It's
right.
like what? It's fucking crazy. So,
Oh, and
anyways,
in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that's what we had. And
hmm
that where people started pulling away from it industry wise because every computer system was had its own operating system. You know, everything from an IBM 370, 360 all the way down to a DEC PDP 11 or whatever. I mean, everything had its own operating system, its own proprietary software. You could not take any of the software and put it onto another system. It was not ubiquitous in any stretch of the imagination. And companies started getting fed up with that because they get locked into
hmm
these really expensive contracts and they couldn't do anything with it other than what they had.
hmm
So that's where the internet is allowed us that freedom that we have. We have servers in the cloud, and those servers can talk to each other in a lot of ways. I mean, the system. I just got finished at my day job, migrating like 13 systems to one, and uh, I could do it
hmm
because it was all cloud-based software. I
hmm
can get to it and pull the data and do what I had to do to massage the data to move it into the new system.
Yeah,
Whereas
universal
if it was
standards.
if it was in the 80s, man, that would have been, I don't even know where you would start. Spreadsheets,
You,
maybe.
you start
Lotus one,
over.
two,
Yeah,
three.
yeah, you'd have to start over. Pen and paper.
Yeah, exactly. That's well, you'd have to start the new system fresh. The likelihood of you
hmm
moving data from one system to another was pretty slim.
You'd have a team of analysts or interns, like, you know, or maybe
So with
one
connect,
LLM.
so with biologic intelligence, I mean, the sensors, motor output, as long as you know what you need to feed it and what you need to do with the output, you can apply it to a lot of different modalities. You don't need, you don't need like for instance with the Drosophila test proof of concept I'm working on, olfactory is a big part of olfactory sensing is a big part of the fly, as you can imagine. So change that olfactory to smoke it so it thinks the food is smoke or smoke is the
Yeah,
food.
right.
And
Go towards food, i.e.,
it,
smoke or
yeah,
fire.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So you can manipulate the nervous system by adding, but you could create any kind of sensor you wanted to,
hmm
that you wanted to tell the drone to move forward to.
Yeah. Pressure, density, humidity,
Yeah,
elevation, altitude, orientation. Yeah.
I mean it's unlimited as far as if you have a
hmm
sensor, we could probably connect it to a biological
Yeah.
nervous system, artificial nervous system, and
hmm
and use it in some way, fashion, or
Yeah.
purpose.
And there's a ton of sensors that are off the shelf and cheap and
Oh,
good.
big time. Yeah.
And yeah, super high powered magnets too. Like all this stuff has become commoditized at
Yeah.
scale. So it's like just use the stuff that's already there instead of having to reinvent everything. Like the
Exactly.
thing you should reinvent is the software,
Yeah.
which we've done. And then you
Yeah.
can use all the other stuff that already exists. That's the whole point. Like stand on the
Right.
shoulders of giants. We shouldn't be making new chips for new software. Like make new software that fits in with the old way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
Anyways, preaching to the converted. All right. Well, this has been rad, Tim. I gotta run to my next
Yeah.
one.
No
Let
worries.
me, yeah, let me know what's going on with this use case.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. I'll keep you informed. Oh, direct. I mean, you'd be the first person to
yeah,
know.
maybe I start reaching out to some insurance folks, and I could actually reach out
Yeah.
to one of the chemical folks that I know and just see like thoughts, just get their perspective on this, see what they
Yeah.
think.
No, I would love it. Yeah. Please do.
Okay.
If you have any connections to power companies, I
Hmm.
mean, if this works, which I don't see why it won't. Um, I mean, it it could really improve our lives tremendously. Let's put it that way,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
improve
agreed.
industry lives tremendously.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. That's why I do what I do. So, hell yeah. Okay, cool, brother.
great.
Well, good
Thank
seeing
you.
your face
You
again, and
too. Yeah.
love seeing all your little furry friends behind you. Not so furry yet, but maybe one day. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah,
I'll
give my love to
up
the
to show.
family.
I don't know if you can see the workbench back there or not. It's
Oh
all full
yeah,
of.
that's the yeah, that's the mad scientist laboratory right there. I love it. Nobody has to know. Yeah, got
Yeah.
the compound out in the woods with solar, like satellite internet, autonomous
Yeah.
robotics,
That's our
connectomic
robotic
AI.
proving grounds, 40 acres up in southern Monterey County. Yeah. Starlink's up
Amazing.
there, and I got it
Hmm.
all wired, and I can look at. I was just looking at the live feed from there about an hour ago or so.
I mean, if we figure out autonomous food creation, like call it a day. I just
Yeah.
talked to a guy last week who was pretty rad, but he created a solar panel manufacturing business that grew in 15 years to something pretty insane in terms of amount of dollars per year. And
Uh-huh.
like super duper cool. So, and then he automated the entire manufacturing line. So
Well,
it's like,
fantastic.
you can get like there's the solar farm right there. You put some compute next to it, you get, and the robots can come recharge, get the water regeneration going, and then
Right.
figure out a way to like plant and till and mend and rewater. And then that gets figured out, and that's a whole ecosystem right there. I mean,
Oh,
that's crazy to think
agriculture.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, agriculture is still. I mean, even there's a lot of robotics being applied to it, there's still nothing that's general.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
That could just
I have a
manage
good.
a field. Yeah.
Yeah, I've made a good friend with a guy who owns a winery, and um, has I don't know how many acres of grapes, and labor shortages are always a huge problem.
Mm.
And they got a lot of different things they have to do throughout the year, and everything from harvesting to pruning to getting rid of the weeds and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's so much ripeness there for ro- robotics, but again, without that general navigation capability, I mean, it's very difficult to create robots that really can go out into the field and do the job like a human can.
You know what I just realized? Life is life is just a funny thing. So in this episode, this call, we started with fire and moved on to farming. And wouldn't it be funny if we're essentially rebuilding the thing that our own biologic intelligence, i.e., humans, started with first fire, then tool making, then farming and agriculture.
Agrarian, yeah.
Like what? Like, and we got there independently. This is some wild stuff. All right, well, fire it is.
Yeah, I know you
Start
got
with
to get
fire.
going. Yeah.
Okay, cool, man.
Alrighty,
All
man.
right, well, enjoy the rest of your week, and
Yeah, you too.
stay safe, and
Yeah.
we'll talk to you on the internet.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right,
See you
buddy.
soon.
Talk to you later. Yeah, bye.